Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. Never was anything great achieved without danger. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. It is much safer to be feared than loved, because love is preserved by the link of obligation which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage, but fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge, but if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. If you need to injure someone, do it in such a way that you do not have to fear their vengeance. I'm not interested in preserving the status quo, I want to overthrow it. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. All courses of action are risky, so prudence is not in avoiding danger, it's impossible, but calculating risk and acting decisively. Make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. Because there are three classes of intellects, one which comprehends by itself, another which appreciates what others comprehend, and a third which neither comprehends by itself nor by the showing of others. The first is the most excellent, the second is good, the third is useless. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. How we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who studies what ought to be done rather than what is done will learn the way to his downfall rather than to his preservation. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. Men in general judge more by the sense of sight than by the sense of touch, because everyone can see but few can test by feeling. Everyone sees what you seem to be, few know what you really are, and those few do not dare take a stand against the general opinion. Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar. Men are so simple of mind, and so much dominated by their immediate needs, that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. A man who is used to acting in one way never changes, he must come to ruin when the times, in changing, no longer are in harmony with his ways. A prudent man should always follow in the path trodden by great men and imitate those who are most excellent, so that if he does not attain to their greatness, at any rate he will get some tinge of it. There is nothing more important than appearing to be religious. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. Hence a prince who wants to keep his authority must learn how not to be good, and use that knowledge, or refrain from using it, as necessity requires. Of mankind we may say in general they are fickle, hypocritical, and greedy of gain. And here comes in the question whether it is better to be loved rather than feared, or feared rather than loved. It might perhaps be answered that we should wish to be both, but since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. It must be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than a new system. For the initiator has the enmity of all who would profit by the preservation of the old institution and merely lukewarm defenders and those who gain by the new ones. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are. Wisdom consists of knowing how to distinguish the nature of trouble, and in choosing the lesser evil. Appear as you may wish to be. It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle, than to initiate a new order of things. Therefore, it is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares and a lion to terrify the wolves. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. When evening comes, I return home and go into my study. On the threshold I strip off my muddy, sweaty, workday clothes, and put on the robes of court and palace, and in this graver dress I enter the antique courts of the ancients and am welcomed by them, and there I taste the food that alone is mine, and for which I was born. And there I make bold to speak to them and ask the motives of their actions, and they, in their humanity, reply to me. And for the space of 4 hours I forget the world, remember no vexation, fear poverty no more, tremble no more at death, I pass indeed into their world. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Therefore the injury that is to be done to a man ought to be of such a kind that one does not stand in fear of revenge. He who becomes a prince through the favor of the people should always keep on good terms with them, which it is easy for him to do, since all they ask is not to be oppressed. There is no avoiding war, it can only be postponed to the advantage of your enemy. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. In conclusion, the arms of others either fall from your back, or they weigh you down, or they bind you fast. He who builds on the people, builds on the mud. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are. Everyone who wants to know what will happen ought to examine what has happened. Everything in this world in any epoch has their replicas in antiquity. Nature creates few men brave, industry and training makes many. A prince must not have any other object nor any other thought but war, its institutions, and its discipline, because that is the only art befitting one who commands. Half of these aren't even Machiavelli. Some are Plato, Thucydides etc. Doesn't anyone check these? Men never do good unless necessity drives them to it, but when they are free to choose and can do just as they please, confusion and disorder become rampant. Therefore it is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. And I shall dare to say this also, that to have them and always to observe them is injurious, and that to appear to have them is useful, to appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright, and to be so, but with a mind so framed that should you require not to be so, you may be able and know how to change to the opposite.